What's happening, guys? Welcome to the Whiskey Shed. Now, my name is John McGrath and this is my new YouTube channel where I, as a relatively uninformed Irishman, take a sojourn through the world of whiskey and drink whiskey in my shed, hence the name. So, without further ado, let's have a look at what we're going to taste tonight. So for this episode of my relatively uninformed opinion, we're going to take a little hop across the pond to the good old US of A, and we're going to head to the state of Kentucky for some Kentucky straight bourbon. And we have a bottle here of Maker's Mark Kentucky bourbon. Now, a couple of little interesting facts about bourbon. If you make it anywhere other than the United States, you can't call it bourbon. So in 1964, the US Congress passed a resolution making bourbon a distinctive product of the United States. The grain mix that goes into bourbon must contain 51% corn or higher, or you can't call it bourbon. It also has to be aged in new oak casks that have been charred on the inside. It's bottled, or it must be bottled at 80 proof, which would be 40 ABV. That's the same as whiskey in Ireland. If it's any lower than 40 ABV or 40% alcohol, then it's not a whiskey. It has to be distilled no higher than 160 proof, which would be 80 ABV, and it has to be put into the cask at no higher than 125 proof, which would be 60.2 ABV. Otherwise, it's not classed as a bourbon. Now, like I say, it's 51% corn, so it's usually a mix of corn, rye and barley, and this particular bourbon uses a mix of corn, wheat and barley, so that makes it kind of unique. It is a wheated bourbon. I think it's somewhere in around 70% corn, and then it's mixed in between the wheat and the barley. And bourbon, straight bourbon, I think can be called bourbon after 2 years of being aged, but when there's no age statement on the bottle, it's generally between 4 and 7 years, which is, I believe, what Maker's Mark actually is. It is aged between 4 to 7 years. So there's a few little facts about bourbon. The bottle is quite nice, I have to say. I really like it. I like the fact that they dip every single bottle with this wax seal, so every bottle is kind of unique. It must cost a lot to pay people to stand there all day and hand dip every bottle, but I quite like it. It's a little bit unique and it kind of adds to the theatre of the whole thing. I know what's inside the bottle is way more important than the bottle itself, but a nice looking bottle for your bottle of whiskey is all part of the act, in my opinion, and it gets you in the mood for some whiskey, so that's a nice little touch. So let's get this into the glass and start nosing and tasting it. Okay, so let's nose and taste this whiskey. How's the lighting, by the way? It's night time in here. I'm trying to go for a different look to my woodworking channel, so it don't all look the same. I have a woodworking channel. If any of you guys actually are into woodworking, I'll leave it linked below. Like I say, this is my new whiskey channel. But let's get a smell of this. All right, straight away, that's just toffee. It's toffee in a glass. Toffee, caramel, and cherry. A cherry toffee, definitely. The cherry is not like a fresh fruit cherry. It's more like a cherry sweet, or a cherry candy, as you'd say in the States. Yeah, there's a strong caramel and toffee. That's right there. It's hard to get past that. And cherry, definitely a nice smell of cherry. I'd say it's cherry toffee in a glass. It's sweet. Smells quite nice. I'm getting a little bit of oak to the background. Maybe some vanilla. Even a little hint of licorice, possibly. And some of that kind of bacon spice is in there, but it's right to the background. But yeah, if you like toffee or if you like caramel, I think you will like this. There's definitely cherries on top. So let's give it a taste. Yeah, definitely it's caramel in the glass. That is a caramel, toffee, cherries with honey. You can definitely get the oak on the back of the tongue. So it's 45% ABV, so that's 90 proof, I believe. Yeah, 40 ABV on the bottle. A little bit of the hint of the ethanol, not much. It is kind of smooth. It's a higher kind of viscosity liquid than the Irish whiskies that I drink. So it has a little bit more syrupiness to it, not much. You can just see it on the edge of the glass. It just means it's a slightly thicker liquid. You can feel it kind of coating your tongue a small bit. But yeah, that is quite nice. I would happily drink that. And I gave some of this to my wife. I've tasted all the whiskies that I have in the house, and of all the whiskies that I have, she quite liked this one, so it's kind of the sweeter thing. So I suppose if you're getting into bourbons, this might be a good starting point. It's readily available everywhere. I paid 46 euros for this. I'm not sure how much dollars it is in the States or how much you'd pay for it. I know it is a big brand whiskey, so it's a mass-produced whiskey. I'm sure everybody from the States who's watching this now will know exactly what Maker's Mark is. And like I say, it's readily available in Ireland as well. I'm losing the ability to speak, and I have only taken a sip. So back on the nose, yeah, it's just all caramel and toffee all day. Not changing too much. Some vanilla there. And on the palate, yeah, you just get that honey. It's definitely some honey in there on the palate. Toffee, caramel. Not so much the cherry, more the honey. And yeah, that's quite a nice, gentle bourbon, I would say. It's not overly complex. It's nice and simple. It's tasty. It smells good. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not going to blow your mind or anything, but yeah, that's pretty good. Let's leave it sit for a few minutes and see what it's like. Okay, so having let it sit for a couple of minutes in the glass, I always find when you leave whiskey sit, I know I've said this already, you always get those little spices come to the forefront. So anything that's there, you can kind of pick it out that little bit better. Now, if you're wondering why I'm using this type of glass, this is a Waterford crystal glass. It was given to me as a present, and it's the glass I like to drink my whiskey from. So I decided I might as well taste and smell the whiskey from the glass that I like to drink from. And I have a big nose as well, so the fact that it's a big glass is not too much of an issue. All right, now it's vanilla is right there. But it's that caramel and toffee and cherry all day. It hasn't changed too much, so the profile that I'm getting on the nose, still very much the same. It's actually more of a bubblegum cherry now that I'm getting. So it has that sweet candy, sweets all day. If you like that kind of thing, you would definitely like this bourbon. So on the palate. Okay, so a bit more oaky that time. Definitely got more of the oak, some more of the tannins. That's definitely to the forefront, even a little bit of licorice. So yeah, definitely leaving it sitting in the glass has changed how it reacts on the palate. Now I know this is purely subjective, and even just tasting whiskey, every time you put a whiskey or put whiskey into your mouth, it's going to change how the next one tastes. So, but yeah, that's a bit dramatic. I've let it sit for a few minutes, and a whack of oak, maybe some even licorice, and it's toned down the sweetness a small bit. And the glass, I'm not getting those really kind of bacon spices that you would get naturally from Irish whiskey. It's kind of way to the background, but it's cherry toffee still all day. It's not bad. So there we go, guys. That has been my opinion on Maker's Mark, this Kentucky bourbon. I really like the bottle. What's in it is actually not too bad. It's not very complex. It is kind of on the sweet side, but I wouldn't say I dislike it. I would say I would definitely get that again. It's a nice whiskey. Maybe that's kind of a whiskey you would drink a little bit more often. I'm not sure how it's viewed in the States, so if you guys in the States can let me know in the comments how well thought of is Maker's Mark. Again, it's very on the sweet side. It's all toffee and caramel all day long with those cherries. It's very like a dessert or a dessert whiskey, maybe, if there's such a thing. And yeah, that's just my novice opinion on it. I like it. My wife likes it. I would definitely get it again. And if you want to try it out, it might be a good entry into bourbon. Now, I will definitely like to try a more complex bourbon. So if you guys have a good suggestion for me for a nice complex bourbon, I would definitely like to try something a little bit more complex than the Maker's Mark. But I have to say, I don't have really anything bad to say about that. Maybe a little bit on the sweet side. If you're not a sweet-toothed person, you might have a little issue with it, but I love the bottle. I love the fact that they hand dip everything. The bottle just adds a little bit of theatre forward for me, and it looks quite nice. I know it's more important, like I said, what's inside the bottle than the bottle itself, but the fact that they go to that effort, I think is quite a nice little touch. So now, let's wrap it up. And as always, we'll try and propose a toast. So, like I said, I'm going to run out of toasts fairly quickly. By the time we get to like whiskey 100, I'm not sure I'm going to have any left. But for today, may you live as long as you want and never want for as long as you live. Sláinte. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Take it easy. Yep, it's just pure toffee, but it's nice.